I think supporting my children, it's very much been, dyslexia hasn't been a taboo word. It's never been about what you can't do. It's been about what you can do. And how are we going to find a way around this?
So I do think everyday life is impacted by dyslexia. And as a parent, trying to understand that and adapt and change to help.
I think the hardest part is not knowing what's wrong with my child. Is she, am I doing something wrong? Are we doing something wrong? And I think that's been the hardest part of our journey in terms of not knowing what's going on when she's been unhappy, when she's been anxious, when she's not been wanting to go to school, and dealing with that in terms of the kind of lash outs. She's been had been internalizing a lot at school, and then coming home is where they kind of release it all.
I talked to my mum about this, and she talks about how she feels ashamed that she didn't notice my dyslexia, as though she would have been able to. And there's no way she'd have known it, but she feels ashamed that that she didn't know about my dyslexia and she didn't help. And I suspect a lot of parents go through that. A lot of parents go through this feeling of, oh, I should have helped my son, or I should have helped my daughter better.
The journey, though, has been, again, it's been tricky, for sure. I mean, just thinking it was the hearing and still not seeing the results after she got in hearing aids was sort of frustrating, because we were just trying to figure out, what it is, why is, she's had the hearing aids 1 year, 2 years, she can hear now. Why is she still struggling? I think for me, that was the biggest issue. And then, again, like I said before, even though I'm a teacher, she doesn't see me as that. She sees me as dad, and to try like, oh, I know all this, and why don't you do this, and why don't you do that? As a parent, it's just like, Dad, just leave me alone, And so I think that's something every parent goes through, and every child goes through, no matter what, the neurodiverse or not.
If we spent as much time teaching kids about mental health and about creativity as we did on parrot fashion and multiplication tables and spelling, we'd have a much more skilled workforce. So, don't link too closely kind of how good they are at spelling with what their life is going to happen to them in the future, because I can't spell still. My eldest daughter is 8 and I cannot do her spellings. It doesn't matter. It hasn't impacted me. I'm amazed at how much school hasn't changed in the last 30 years. Don't let those systems kind of stifle your motivation for helping your child, because you're going to need to fight for them probably all the way through university, let alone the early stages.
So I think sometimes as parents, it can be terrifying having a child with dyslexia, thinking what will become of them. Like it can feel like such a massive mountain to climb. But I think it's very much about embracing their strengths and finding the way that's right for them. And no, they might not have that moment with academia, but they'll have so many more other moments, and it's a case of looking them out.
I think the worst thing for me was homework. So in the prep school, there was a significant amount of homework every evening. So that was a challenge in itself, and that frustration of trying to teach your child and them not getting it, and you trying to hold in that frustration and support them at the same time, and that didn't work all the time, and we'd fall out and he'd be crying, I'd be crying. So actually you have to really dig deep in terms of trying to put yourself in say, Stanley's position. How is he going to best learn? So it was kind of using all of your toolbox and trying to pull out different techniques, different ideas, different ways of learning. And what we know is he has very poor processing. So actually it's repeating what he's trying to learn over and over again and trying different ways of explaining it. And that's not just in teaching, that's in things like, Stanley, go and get ready for school, or Stanley, be quick in the shower. You have to repeat it over and over again. Now, that might not be the dyslexia, that might just be because he's a teenager now. But I do think there is a correlation.
My son will sometimes, his dyslexia will manifest in him being really tired, or him not being able to concentrate for long periods of time. So it's kind of picking up on those signals where they might need a movement break, or if it's just not going to work, that they need to do their homework that night, but they're really tired, they're really stressed out, then it's probably a good idea just not to do the homework that night.
If I didn't get the homework, he would get angry. Well, not angry, but get annoyed. So we had to get a tutor because there'd be constant arguments about it. But yeah, I would say they're good. They learnt how to, well, teach me and work with me, and most of the time it's all good.
When it comes to work, I get very defensive when I don't really listen to what he says. But then I'll like yell at him, and then like a minute later I'll be like, I need your help.
This is being recorded, right? Yeah, okay. All right.
If your child has not been in a great frame of mind in the evening for whatever reason, let the school know, communicate with them, tell them that they've not done their homework because of whatever reason, or they've tried their best with their homework, then that's really important. And I think homework should always have a target time. I think it's really important. Dyslexic kids quite often take longer to complete tasks because of the processing issues and the working memory. If the homework should take 20 minutes, but your child has done 20 minutes, then communicate that with the school and say, they did 20 minutes, this is how much they managed to achieve. Teachers need the feedback. Teachers want the child to be successful. They want the child to be able to achieve. So that communication between home and school is really important.
I think because I struggle with my working memory, I've empowered my children from quite an early age to be responsible for themselves. So they know if they want to remember their PE kit, then they have to get it ready themselves because I can't remember it. So I think because I use lots of strategies myself, naturally, by osmosis, the children have started to use strategies.
Try and find out your child's learning style. You know, don't just be kind of beholden to the schools or the education's way of telling you they have to learn, because chances are if they're dyslexic, it doesn't really matter how much you hammer them with kind of, write, cover your spelling, read it back sort of stuff. They're not going to learn anyway. You have to find their learning style and work with them on that. And then focus on what they're good at, because as we've talked about, like, there are a lot of things that dyslexics are really good at, especially in kind of creative problem solving or innovative ideas and stuff. So if you can work with your child, not so much on did they get their spelling test right or did they get their multiplication test right, but actually, why don't we sit down and try and create something together?
I think it's a journey, and that's maybe the biggest word that I can say, is that it's very, very difficult to understand the needs of your child, and any dyslexic learner is different to another dyslexic learner. So when you read things online, it's not like that's suddenly going to work for my child too. So I think when I'm speaking with parents, we start at the very beginning of their journey of understanding what it means to have whatever diagnosis it is, because we've got children with obviously co-occurring needs as well. And then I work with them in terms of, okay, what's important to you as a parent and what's important to your child? And then we look at how we can make that possible.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting because my 3 children have got very different dyslexic profiles. So coming back to that question at the very beginning about what is dyslexia, definitely presents differently in different people. And I think understanding how it manifests is key to how we need to support it. So, for my son, he really needed discussion learning. So he needed opportunities to be able to ask questions, to move his own thinking forward. It's no point sitting him down and talking at him because he's never going to learn that way. He needs to ask questions. He needs to have a discussion. That's what works for him.
I would say if you have any worries, any doubts, don't just try and soldier on by yourself. Try and access the help that's out there, and just do something about it, because the longer you leave it, the harder it is for them, the longer they're struggling with not being able to identify with who they are. So I would say access the help, access the support that's out there. Go and speak to as many people as will listen, and you'll find somebody that will be able to go, I think this is where you might need some help. This is the area that you need to look into, whether it be dyslexia or anything, special needs, neurodiverse wise.
So one of the things that is quite difficult for parents is they don't really know where to go or where to turn to for help or support. And sometimes they actually don't know how to respond when they're told, look, my child needs a little bit of help, and they're maybe sort of told by the Senko or the head teacher, no, they don't, they're fine, no, they don't need an AHCP. I think what I would sort of recommend to parents is just, if you feel that your child is needing something else, whether it's a diagnosis or extra support, then you should fight and advocate for your child. There's a lot of parents that come to us at Moonhall for support, guidance and information, and they've just been really misinformed by whoever it is that they've spoken to about the support that their child might be entitled to. So I think parents know, they have that gut instinct. If you think your child needs that extra help, then please fight for it.
So for parents, I would definitely suggest to reach out to the people that know what they're doing in the school. So whether that's your allocated therapist or the Senko on site or the class teacher, because whatever they're doing at school, if that is then followed through at home, it can be really beneficial for that student.
So with my son, I remember when he started at his new school in year 9, he came home on the first day and he said, all the children that have got straight 9s have stood up in assembly today. He went, how amazing is that? He said it was brilliant, but he said, I feel really sad because that is never going to be me. Like, I'm never going to get straight 9s. And I said, that's okay. We're going to find your moment. It'll be a different moment, but you will have your moment. And he had his moment when in his final music concert, he's amazing at music, and he played in every single ensemble. He taught himself his main instrument is trumpet, piano, and drums, but he taught himself to play the double bass so that he could play in the string quartet. He played the piano for the junior school choir, and he didn't have time to teach himself the flute, but he played the teacups in time for tea and managed to get 7 notes out of a cup and saucer. And he said to me, Mum, he said, I've had my moment. That was my straight 9 moment.